Hi everybody, very welcome to Mentour and yet another video podcast. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. Today on the video, guys, if you go out on flightradar 24 right now and take a screenshot, you'll see that there's loads and loads of aircraft still flying. Now, with the news from all of the major airlines out there that they're grounding a big part or even their entire fleet, what are these aircraft that are still flying? Stay tuned.
31016, 31 right, right on. Third land, 31 right. Delta 26.
This video is brought to you in cooperation with NordVPN, and NordVPN has a really important message for you. They know that right now you might be, whether you want it or not, sitting from home, working from home. Now this means that this has turned out to what looks like a Christmas Eve for cyber criminals out there. There's been a huge upswing in phishing attempts, in malware being deployed into people's computers. So NordVPN has dedicated a part of their website to guide you on how you should stay safe online. This includes things like, considering to deploy separate Wi-Fi networks from where you are working with your work computer and where your kids are playing online games. It's things like making sure that you have security updates and that you're backing up your computer, that you're using the latest software on all the software you have on your computer, but also that you're very careful when you're opening work mails, right? Make sure that you check the email address, and if you're not sure that the email address, even if it looks like it's coming from a colleague, then send them a WhatsApp, ask if they've actually sent you an email before you open up any files. Now, another thing that you should be doing by now to secure your data and to make sure that it's encrypted is to use NordVPN, okay? If you are not used to working online, if you're not used to maybe shopping online, well, if you use NordVPN, you will have encrypted your card details, your passwords and everything like that already. So if you use this link here below, you'll get 70% off the normal fee of NordVPN. So check it out. You'll also get 1 month completely for free if you use this link here below. Right guys, first of all I just want to address the elephant in the room, and it's not Patchy for once, who's sleeping in the sofa here next to me. No, I'm obviously not in uniform. It actually makes me a little bit sad to get into uniform right now. It's been 2 weeks now on lockdown here in Catalonia, and I haven't flown for a month and a half almost now. So you're gonna have to live with me sitting in my t-shirt for this video. The reason I'm making this video, guys, is because I got a question from a good friend of mine actually on Instagram, and she wrote me and she sent a screen grab from flightradar 24, and she said, I thought there was no flights going on at all right now. How come that the sky is still filled with aircraft? Now, first of all, I'm going to say that actually it is not. If you would take a screen grab at this date a year ago and you compare it to what you have now, there's actually a huge reduction in flights. But having said that, there is still a lot of aircraft flying. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at what type of aircraft are actually flying. So if we look at the airlines, the regional, the long to short to medium haul airlines and the long haul airlines, they are still flying to a certain extent. Now, some of them have announced that they will, over the coming weeks, start to reduce their flights to ultimately maybe grounding their entire fleet. But what you have to understand is that an airline will continue to fly as long as it is economically viable to do so. The more that an airline can fly, the more they will keep their crew current, the more they will keep their aircraft current without having to do extra checks on their pilots, for example, or extra maintenance checks on their aircraft. So they will continue to fly. And remember, a lot of the flights that are flying right now were booked by passengers maybe 3-4 months ago. People have booked their Easter holidays, for example, way before. And if a flight is 80% booked, an airline will try to fly that flight no matter what, all right? Providing that the country of departure still have their borders open and the country you're flying to still have their borders open and there's no restrictions on actually flying them, they will still fly that flight, because if they don't, they first of all cannot claim any money from the passengers. You know, the contract that the passengers had with the airline was that they would be flying on that date. If the passengers doesn't turn up to fly on that date, then that's up to the passenger. The airline have kept their part of the bargain. And also, if they would cancel, well then in normal circumstances, they would actually have to pay a specific EU fine for cancelling the flight. Now, those fines are, I'm not 100% sure now, but I think that EU have decided not to enforce that during these special times. But in any circumstances, if an airline sees that it's more economically viable to fly the flight, they will do it. Now, the bookings have obviously gone down to almost zero. So as we go along, as the time now stretches into the coming weeks, you will see that more and more of these flights are actually completely empty. And as they become unviable, the airlines will put them on the ground. So in 1 week, you'll see less aircraft. Week after that, it's likely that it's going to be even less aircraft. But there are still flights that are economically viable. Even during hard times like this, there are certain destinations, the so-called skeleton networks, where the airlines will likely continue to fly throughout this crisis. And these are destinations like London, in between the different capitals of Europe, for example, where there tend to be business travelers traveling as long as they are allowed to do so. And these flights, the airlines will continue to fly. This is why they keep saying that they will go down to maybe 90% or 95%. Those extra percent are likely these main routes that they can still keep profitable, even if the normal travel demand, even if the normal kind of holiday makers have completely dried up. All right? Now, there is another type of flying that's going on as well, and this might surprise you a little bit more. So the airlines are acutely aware that this is a temporary crisis, that this crisis inevitably is going to stop at some point. But depending on how long that takes, the airlines might run into issues with the currency of its pilots and its aircraft. If they would just ground their entire fleet, the clock starts ticking on their flight crews. So generally speaking, after a certain amount of time, between 30 to 90 days, the pilots will not be allowed to fly unless they do a training flight with someone like me, a training captain or a type rating examiner. But if it goes more than 90 days, then by law, they have to go into a simulator to do 3 touchdowns, 3 takeoffs and landings, because you need to have at least 3 takeoffs and landings within 90 days. So for the airlines, it is crucial that this doesn't happen. If they ground their entire fleet and every single one of the pilots needs to go into a simulator in order to be able to fly, it means that they won't be able to get the machine running again. So what you're starting to see soon is airlines taking one aircraft up and maybe doing a takeoff, departure, an arrival route and a landing. All right? Both that will keep the 2 pilots who are doing that flight current, and also that will keep the aircraft flying without having to do any additional maintenance checks because it's been standing on the ground for too long. So what you can expect from major airlines, the ones that have a huge route network and a lot of aircraft, is for this to start happening. Now, if they have a simulator center close to some of the big bases, that's likely to be used for similar type of activity. But it is crucial for when this crisis is over, that the airlines can just start pumping again, start working, and they're not held up by restrictions on their training. It should also be said that the authorities play a huge role here. So it is likely that the authorities, for example in Europe, EASA, is going to be lenient, is going to give some leniency to the airlines in order to get them back operating again. But what those rules are, well, that is still something that we're waiting to see. Right? Cool. Now, we go from there to other types of flights, like repatriation flights. That's the countries that are contracting some of the airlines to fly out and get their citizens from places around the world, get them back to the country in times of crisis. This is still going on. Similarly, the big holiday companies like TUI, for example, they will have holiday makers that have a 2-week holiday somewhere. These flights where they go and get them to come back in again will still continue to happen. So those are other flights that are going on. But then we have cargo flights. Okay, now cargo flights is fascinating when it comes to this. Cargo flights and passenger flights in a situation like this are very different from each other, where the passenger flights obviously is hugely impacted by the travel demand. The cargo flights, not so much. But what you might not be aware of is the fact that the cargo flight and the passenger flight sometimes is the same flight. So on a huge aircraft like a 777, for example, you can actually fill that up with passengers, take all of the luggage and still be able to fit a lot of freight in there. So during the last year or so, the freight business has gone through a bit of a rough time where the demand for air freight has stayed more or less the same, maybe even gone down a little bit as the economy started to kind of plateau a bit. But the available freighters have gone up. There's been more passenger traffic, which means that there's more potential for air freight. So you have less demand and more potential flight. All right. Now, what happened obviously when this crisis started unfolding in China was that all of the passenger flights going in and out of China suddenly stopped overnight. And with that, a lot of the freight capability disappeared overnight as well. Now, what this led to was that all of a sudden, there wasn't as much freight available as was needed. And when that happens, it means that the price of freight is going up. So where it used to cost around €1 per kilo to get something freighted by air, now it would have gone up to maybe €5 or €6 as an example. And when that happens, it means that there's now a potential market for freight, for airlines that have a combined freight and passenger fleet to just use their passenger aircraft completely empty in the top, but the rest used for freight. So this is something we're seeing right now. More passenger aircraft flown empty of passengers, but full of freight, and we can expect that to continue. Now, over long term, the freight business is very dependent on the overall shape of the economy. So if this goes into a global recession, then the amount of freight needed is going to go down as the industry slows down, and there will be less cargo flights. But for now, you can expect the cargo flights at least to continue to fly for the foreseeable future. All right? Then we come to private jets. Now, private jets is also fascinating because as this crisis started, you had two things happening. You had people being afraid of being among other people in groups, and you had a less amount of scheduled passenger traffic happening. So that meant that wealthy individuals that maybe didn't want to go out among people, they could ask or maybe use private jets. Same with companies that needed to fly in between specific cities that might not have as much passenger traffic going anymore, still wanted to do that. The only way to really do that was by using private jets. So we've seen a bit of an up kind of swing for private jet traffic over the last few months. That might continue. It depends a little bit about what the wealthy individuals out there decide to do and how the companies react to this. But it's likely, just as with cargo, that as the global economy starts slowing down, so will private jet flights. Okay? On top of that, we have general aviation. Now, general aviation, you can actually see which ones are general aviation if you go in on flightradar. There's the smaller aircraft. That's also very, very dependent on the overall economical state of the countries that you're flying in, because it's seen as a luxury. It's something that you do if you can afford it. And obviously, if people are earning less money, they will have less. No, that's true. They will have less amount of money available to go out and fly private aircraft, smaller aircraft, general aviation, which is also extremely sad. But that's about it, right? If I have forgotten to mention something, or if you have more questions about this, which I'm guessing that you have, it seems like Patchy has it, then fire them off here in the questions below the video. Also, always know that you can go into the Mentour Aviation app, which is completely free to download, and you can just tag @Mentour in the chat. That will send a message to me directly, and we can have a discussion about this. Maybe in the general chat, maybe in the forums. But in any case, let's get in there. Let's create a positive atmosphere where we have somewhere where we can all go and kind of relax from the flood of bad news that's coming from every direction. We are trying to keep a positive and a constructive feel inside the Mentour Aviation app at all times. Okay? And as a finishing word, I just want to make sure that you all stay safe out there, guys. Listen to your local authorities, listen to the medical professionals out there. Let's do whatever we can to try to stay as safe as possible during these times. And I am sure that we are going to beat this thing, we are going to get over this hill, and we are going to get through the tunnel. And on the other side, there is a bright future waiting for all of us. So continue watching the channel. I hope that you have subscribed by now, and there will be much more things coming out from me, given that I'm sitting here in my t-shirt in my home and I cannot get out. So the only thing I can do is create more videos for you guys, and I hope that you'll enjoy it. See you in my next video, and have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye-bye. Right guys, I really hope that you liked that. If you want more content like that, more aviation content, well then check this out. I hope that you have subscribed to the channel and that you've highlighted the little notification bell. See you inside of the Mentour Aviation app, and have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye bye.